My wife went behind my back to an abandoned building to meet her AP. So, I planned this for her. I don't even know how to start this or where to start from. I feel so mad and irritated. And at the same time, I'm glad that I took my revenge. You all wouldn't believe what I'm about to say, and I know some of you will judge me about my revenge. Well, that's okay, because at this point, I don't really care. I'm not here to ask for any advice or opinion because I have made my decision already, and I know it is for my own good. If not for anything, at least for my own sanity. Some would also think this is a made-up story and all that. Well, it's fine, actually. I'm here to rant about what happened to me a few months ago, and also tell this to someone who is also in this predicament. I have read and seen a couple of things like this before, but I never knew that one day I would be among them, particularly on this wall. I have seen a lot of people coming here to rant about how their marriages ended because of their wives or girlfriends. I have also seen how remorseful some of these women were after being caught. But my case was different. Mine was the opposite. Before I say anything further, let me first introduce myself. My name is Mike. I am 27 years old. I'm actually here to tell you all what happened that's making me mad. Well, I have gotten over it already, but the thought of it is making me feel so, especially when I caught my 25-year-old wife, Janet, cheating on me with one of her high school friends. Of course, I was mad. Apparently, Janet and I have been together for about 5 years now, but we just recently got divorced. What even angered me the most was the fact that my wife and her affair partner had the audacity to mock me when I walked in on them. Before I continue, I would like to ask you guys one very important question, and hopefully I get a reasonable answer from you. In a normal setting, if you caught your wife cheating on you, I think any reasonable and responsible woman would actually feel a little bit of guilt and shamefulness, right? If yes, then I thought so too. But in my case, my shameless wife had the audacity to mock me. The height of it was when her affair partner also joined. They thought I was weak, but my wife didn't know what was coming for her. Moving on, guys, I wouldn't bore you all with how me and my arranged wife met, because there's nothing special about it to me right now. Mind you, my wife and I started off lovely, but right now, all of those things that happened between us have turned sour for me. Honestly, I don't even want to ever set my eyes on her, just because I showed her love and affection. Janet took all of those for granted. I guess I was too attached to her, and thought she could use that against me by having an affair. Have you guys ever been in love with someone that you honestly thought he or she was the perfect one for you? Or ever loved someone, and they ended up using that against you? I don't know about you guys, but for me, yes, and I regret everything now. Like I said earlier, guys, I wouldn't want to bore you down with how Janet and I first met and how we ended up with each other. But for the sake of those that would like to know about our first time meeting, and also to fulfill all righteousness, I would only talk about the first meeting. Well, Janet and I met at a bookworm club back in high school, and ever since that day, we became friends and took things to the next level. But right now, I regret ever making that decision and honestly hope I could turn back the hands of time. Now, this is where everything started. At this point, I will delve into what actually happened and how it started. So, guys, after Janet and I got married a few months later, she started some habits that actually made me think I was the bad one. She knew how much I loved her, and she actually used that against me. We quarreled a couple of times and also settled most times. I wasn't the one at fault, but I tended to apologize just for us to live peacefully. That was how much I loved Janet. It got to a point where she made nagging an everyday routine and even made me look like the bad guy. Guys, third parties also had an influence in this. Most of the misunderstandings we had boiled down to the kind of company Janet kept. I honestly didn't like her type of friends. They were a bad influence on her and also messed up with her head. Janet wouldn't listen and chose them over me. I'm not against her having friends, but the type she kept was what I disliked. Despite all these issues, I still loved Janet. Then one of my coworkers, Jaden, who happens to be my best friend, advised me to reduce the way I loved Janet because it was clear that she was taking it for granted. I never listened because I was blinded by love. But right now, I have learned my lesson. Yes, it's a good thing to love and show your partner how much you value them, but in the case where your efforts are being taken for granted, you ought to respect yourself. My relationship with Janet was toxic. This happened after we both got married to each other. Sometimes, I wondered if there was a duration set to know someone before tying the knot together. On many occasions, my friends did make jest of me, but I never took it to heart. Unlike Janet, I didn't want my friends to have a say in my marriage, and so I never listened to any of their advice. But right now, I just realized that I really messed up. What got me dumbfounded was what I got to know just a few days ago. I found out that one of Janet's friends was the one that advised her to cheat on me, and was the one that actually hooked the affair up with Janet. I don't know why I seem surprised, even when I shouldn't be. At the end of the day, I laughed over it and moved on. I have received a lot of calls and text messages from Janet, pleading for us to get back together. I'm sure by now she will be feeling the heat of being divorced and not having anything. Oh, I haven't told you guys what I did when I found out, right? Alright, then I'll get to it now. After I walked in on Janet and her affair partner, I was so mad and irritated. Instead of being remorseful for what she did, she made a mockery of me. That act made me swear with everything I had to make her life a living hell. Prior to that incident, Janet was a full-time housewife. She had no job or anything doing that could fetch her money. Just imagine working so hard for a woman that I call my wife, so she could live comfortably under my roof. Instead, she had the nerves to sneak out of my nose and cheat. I didn't have any mercy on her during the divorce process. The divorce was to my favor because I used everything I had and fought hard. She did not dare hire any lawyer because she was just too broke to do so. I also stopped all the monthly payments to her accounts and also blocked the joint account we both shared together. Janet was so lucky that I didn't borrow money in her name. If not, she would have been in a huge debt right now. I seized the cars that were in her possession and also threw her out of my house. Right now, I'm no longer living at that house anymore. I have sold it by now. The news must have gotten to her. I know how much Janet loved that house. She no longer being able to have access to it would definitely get to her. I have nothing to lose. In fact, I just got myself a new apartment a week after our divorce. I found out that those of her friends who were feeding her bad advice had also thrown her out. The so-called boyfriend dumped her after they both spent the little change she got in court out of pity. Rumors had it that her friends were jealous of her because she was the only one amongst them who was married and lived comfortably without having any job, whereas they had to fend for themselves and had no one to do that for them. If truly that was the case, then Janet was so foolish to fall into that trap. By now, she will have understood why I didn't like the kind of company she kept. I knew something was off about those girls, but Janet trusted them so much and even had issues with me because of them. Then, I didn't stop loving her like a husband was supposed to. Honestly, guys, this just goes to show how much I cared and almost worshipped my wife. I don't mean that I worshipped her, but I'm just trying to say that I adored Janet. I think that's what my friends refer to as S. I was actually the submissive one in the marriage, but now I have realized that being the submissive man will only end up making me a laughingstock and a joker. I'm very ashamed of myself, even as I write this. It makes no sense that I trusted my wife so much that I didn't know that she had been cheating on me. It's even more crazy and surprising that it was one of her high school friends, Zach, who was her affair partner, and it took me so long to find out about this. I think that my wife is very aware of the fact that I am a very calm man. That's why she had the audacity to cheat with Zach, who was literally living a few steps away from my workplace. That is to say that any time I was at work, Janet would sneak out to go see him. I know you all are wondering how I actually found out that Janet is cheating on me. Well, it didn't take me much time before I found out about her infidelity. I knew the kind of company she kept, and so I started doubting her the moment we constantly had issues because of her friends. I knew I couldn't trust her any longer, and so I had her watched closely during this period. I didn't get close to Janet so as to not contract any form of infection. I also had some doubts at some point, but my instincts kept telling me that something was off somewhere. I noticed that any time I went to work, Janet would usually come around at my workplace. I didn't think too much about it because I thought maybe she had come there along with friends. Sometimes my best friend Jaden and a couple of coworkers would tell me that they saw my wife driving towards the office road and had a usual spot where she normally parked her car. At first, I didn't believe it because it was coming from Jaden. I knew how much Jaden didn't like Janet and how he had constantly warned me to stay careful of her. So, I thought maybe Jaden wanted to actually mess with my head by making up those things. The time he asked me to go see for myself as confirmation, I literally turned him down. Why? Because of the level of trust one had for Janet. Later on, I started having my suspicions when two of my coworkers, who knew Janet, came to report the same thing Jaden had been telling me. Yes, I was surprised and shocked. In fact, I was dumbfounded. But I didn't give in. I wanted to see it by myself because I didn't want to be fed lies from third parties. Even if Janet was cheating, I wanted to catch her red-handed or have proof of her infidelity. And so, I made it a task to do. I thought to myself that if what I was being told turned out to be true, then Janet would regret ever agreeing to be my wife. I was so furious, but at the same time I coordinated myself. At that point, the reports were too much, so I needed to act fast. A part of me was telling me that Jaden and all those that reported to me could be wrong. That was what I hoped too, so that I could rub it in Jaden's face that Janet might actually keep bad company. But she's not the type of person you are thinking she is. So guys, a week after those reports, I couldn't find the time to go see it myself. I was so busy with work that I came back late most of the time, and whenever I got home, Janet was fast asleep. As much as I wanted to know the truth, a part of me wanted to confront my wife about those reports. But I knew that she was going to deny it, so I didn't bother asking her. Instead, I collided with Jaden and solicited for his assistance. Trust Jaden. He was more than happy to do it. So, when it comes to that, LOL, Jaden and I made up a plan to expose Janet, or rather, to see if she was actually cheating on me. I was very hesitant at first because I did not think it was right to keep an eye on my wife without her knowing. But as time went on, I realized that I had to take up those measures if I wanted to find out exactly what had been going on behind my back. It is a known fact that I would not have been able to get the real truth from her because cheaters never accept their faults. So, I was left with no other option than to take that step. At that time, I was ready to take whatever comes out, not minding if it turns out to be true or not. So, one Monday morning, Jaden and I were at the office as usual doing our daily routine. It wasn't long after when Jaden asked me to follow him to the place where Janet usually parks her car anytime she is around the office area. Jaden also told me that my wife would drive into the office road at exactly 10 a.m. I was surprised because I didn't expect that Jaden would know the time Janet would drive in. That means this was actually going on for a long time, and he must have really taken time to study her entry and exit. That baffled me and got me more curious. At some point, I began to believe Jaden because of the kind of things he was telling me during that time, but still, I was keen on catching Janet myself. So guys, we waited till exactly 10 a.m., and there was no sign of Janet. I got tired and quarreled with Jaden for wasting my time. He apologized but asked me to wait a little longer. Maybe Janet was caught up with something. After much persuasion from him, I finally told him I had 30 minutes to spare. And after that, if she doesn't show up, I would go back to work. So guys, Jaden and I waited there for about 30 minutes, and Janet didn't show up. At that point, I had already given up and was ready to go when a sound that seemed to be that of an engine car was approaching us from a distance. It was then I turned to see what was coming. Jaden and I hid in a corner to watch what was coming. Guys, guess what? Jaden didn't lie. The car that was approaching our direction was Janet, my wife. Apparently, I later got to know after the whole scenario that she was cut up with something on her way, which is why she didn't make it to the usual 10 a.m. She arrived at 11:30 a.m. So guys, Jaden and I then watched her park at the usual spot. They do tell me about it after a few minutes in the car. Janet came down and entered a dilapidated building. This building had been abandoned for such a long time but was recently inhabited by a group of bad guys. I didn't understand what in God's name Janet was looking for, or who she came visiting. Obviously, there was no sign of her friends. So who was she looking for? That was the question that I kept asking myself. Like as if Jaden read my thoughts, he proposed we follow her in and see for ourselves. But before we did that, we made sure we did it carefully so as to not be seen by Janet or any of those bad guys. And so we followed her carefully. The environment was conducive and unbearable. We had to bear the scent of cigarettes coming from the apartments in the building. I couldn't believe that Janet does come to this type of environment regularly, looking for what seems perplexing to me. So, guys, we kept following Janet quietly until she entered the room. It was at this point I told Jaden that I was going to take things from there. I wanted to go in alone and asked him to stay back should anything happen. Jaden complied, and we waited for about 5 minutes before I decided to go in to see what my wife went in there to go and do. During these 5 minutes, I armed myself so as to strike if anyone dares to attack me. There was an abandoned, rotten rod in the hallway, so I picked it up and armed myself with it. So, guys, this is where it gets interesting. I approached the room door my wife entered and gave a deep breath before opening the door. Just when I was about to open, I could hear a sound coming from the room. I got so furious that I immediately opened the door. Guys, then I saw my wife lying shamelessly on the bed with another man. I was so mad that I wanted to punch Janet on the face. What angered me the most was the look on her face. She wasn't remorseful or shameful. Rather, Janet smirked and asked me what I was going to do. Really, is that I'm sorry I get for cheating on me? I asked Janet, looking more furious. Before I could utter any more words, Janet's affair partner told me right in my face what I was going to do too. It was at that point I couldn't take it anymore. I pounced on him and punched him so hard that he got his nose bleeding. He tried to get up, but I got a good grip of him and gave him a beating that he would never forget. After beating him to my satisfaction, I gave him a warning never to sleep with other people's wives or girlfriends again. I'm sure he would adhere to it because that beating was so intense that he got a lot of bruises all over his body. That wasn't all, guys. The stupid guy wanted to call for backup by screaming so loud so he could be rescued, but unfortunately for him, there was loud music coming from 2 apartments in the building. The room we were in was a little bit far from other rooms, and so it was difficult for anyone to come and help him out. He wanted to play smart but didn't know that I looked more than I appeared to him. Janet was also surprised to see me in that state. She didn't believe I could get into a fight and actually win. So, guys, I was on top of the stupid guy when Jaden ran and pulled me over. If not for Jaden, I would have punched him to unconsciousness. He should be lucky that I didn't use the rotten rod I came in with on him. Guys, just imagine that I did that. He would have found himself in the hospital after Jaden pulled me over. I turned to the other side where my shameless wife was standing. I went over there and pinned her to the wall. She was screaming and pleading for mercy. I left her in that state for about 5 minutes before I let go. I didn't know what exactly to say to her. If at all I decided to punch her like I did to her affair partner, then she wouldn't be able to walk for the next 1 year. I controlled myself and walked out of the room. Jaden also followed me and we went straight to my house. I called my boss and took permission for both Jaden and I for that day when we arrived home. I was so furious that I wanted to pull down the whole building. At that time, I was panting around the sitting room like a hungry lion waiting to devour its prey. Jaden tried everything possible to calm me down, but all efforts went down the drain. I was that mad. At some point, I went upstairs and locked myself inside. What I was about to do next, I knew Jaden wouldn't be in support of, and so I locked myself in. I went into the wardrobe where Janet kept her clothes and valuables and had it thrown through the window in our room. All our wedding pictures, birthday, picnic, and lots of pictures we had together. I had it broken and thrown out immediately. I went down and went over to the backyard and picked up the lighter and diesel. Jaden tried stopping me, but my mind was made up. I emptied the diesel on the clothes and had it light up. I watched how the clothes and other valuables were all burning up into ashes. That was what Janet got for having the audacity to cheat on me and still have the gall to ask me what I was going to do after catching her. Well, my actions have given her the answer to the question she asked me in that dilapidated building. At that time, I wanted to see the look on Janet's face. I wanted her to feel worse and regret ever thinking of cheating on me. To think that I did everything for Jet and she had the nerves to dare look me right in the eyes and ask me stupid questions was what got me angered. So guys, 30 minutes after I set Janet's clothing and valuables on fire, she came to the house. But at that time she had a little bit of guilt on her face, or rather shame. Just when she was about to plead for mercy, she sighted smoke coming out from the backyard. She ran like a mad dog to see what was actually going on. Just then, Janet recognized her belongings being burned down to ashes. Immediately, she ran and took the fire extinguisher to quench the fire. But by then, the whole thing had burned down, and there was nothing left. Janet fell down to her knees and cried. I didn't want to hear those crocodile tears, so I went over to where she was, pulled her up, and told her to get out of my compound, or else I would call the gatekeeper to have her thrown out himself. As usual, she kept asking me rhetorical questions like, why did I burn her stuff if at all I wanted to take out revenge? Honestly, guys, after seeing my wife in an appropriate position with another man at a dilapidated building, I thought of a very cruel revenge that would make her shed lots of tears and would never forget it. So soon, I knew how valuable Janet's clothing meant to her, and that was why I thought of the perfect thing to do, which was to light them up. I sure got to her in that aspect. She thought I was a weakland, but didn't know that I could be a monster in just a second. If burning her stuff would actually make her so angry, then she should have given it a thorough thought about it before cheating on me over the years. I hated cheaters and deceivers. Janet knew how much I hated those who cheat on their partners and lie. I once had a girlfriend before I met Janet. That relationship didn't work out because of her infidelity. I confided in Janet about it, and she decided to do it so she could see my reaction. Unfortunately for her, she got worse and had herself to be blamed for it. I feel no remorse or whatsoever about my cruel revenge, and honestly, she doesn't know what's coming for her. Update. Hi guys, I'm back, and I'm more than ready to share this update with you all. Before I continue, I would like to first appreciate you all for all the comments I have seen, both nice and nasty comments. I would like to say thank you to all of you. I appreciate them, and I don't take any of it for granted. Some of you said I was too brutal in taking out my revenge. Right, maybe I was, but honestly, I don't regret any of those punishments I gave Janet. If that would satisfy me, yes, it would. Moving on, guys, after I threw Janet out of the house, she shamelessly went over to live with her affair partner. I also learned that those who hooked her up with the guy have cut all forms of communication with her. Well, I don't really care right now. I'm just focusing on kneeling on her by signing the divorce papers and having it sent back to me. I can't stand her sight for a moment because of how disgusting she is. Right now, she's trying all her possible best to have us come back together. But I will not allow it. I have discussed with my lawyer and also made some necessary arrangements. Just a few days after I caught her cheating on me, I went to the bank and closed all joint accounts and also stopped her monthly payments. I can't be working like a workaholic for 24 hours and have my money spent on lunatics. It's not like I pull money from trees. When Janet discovered that I had cut off her monthly payments, she was so furious and dared that she was going to have me sued. I laughed and nodded my head in self-pity, like she actually has the money to hire a good lawyer. Sometimes, when Janet talks, she tends to forget that she has no upper hand in this divorce because she's jobless and has nothing to do. Honestly speaking, guys, at this point, I don't even know what these women really want. Janet cheated on me with one of her high school friends, who she was a year ahead of back in school. If she had wanted him, why did she have to do all of that? Like sneaking out of the house anytime I was at work. I think maybe she was just ready to throw away our marriage for a few seconds of pleasure. That's all that I can see here. Honestly, all she ever wanted to do was ruin the marriage. That's why she made nagging an everyday routine. This leads me to my next question. Why is it hard to just ask for a divorce if you're tired of your partner and you would rather sleep around than fix your marriage? Why don't you ask for a divorce instead? Of course, I don't bite, and obviously, I'm not a monster or a hungry-looking lion. If she had asked me for a divorce, I would have given it to her without giving it much thought. I literally don't care about forcing her to stay. I would have had huge respect for her if she just came to me and demanded we end our marriage. At some point, I got so tired of the so-called marriage that sometimes I didn't like coming home because of her nags. Janet should have met me for a divorce. That is a more respectful thing to do than going out of your way to shamefully cheat on your husband. Only cowards cheat, and I will never have respect for anyone who thinks it's right to cheat on their partners. During this period, all I was bent on doing was to divorce Janet as soon as possible. The divorce process was taking too long, and my lawyer kept telling me to exercise patience. At that moment, I had no time to waste because I wanted to get rid of her. She became a burden to me, and I wasn't happy about it. 1 week after I contacted my lawyer and he told me it wasn't ready, I made up my mind to sell the house off. I put it up for sale, and not too long after, I had many buyers who were interested in the house. Of course, it's a well-furnished apartment and is still in good shape. Shortly after the house was sold off, it was a game of the highest bidder, and I sure got a nice pay. It is my house, not Janet's. I paid for it. I thought she was a reasonable and responsible woman, but I thought wrong. And obviously, I don't need her permission before selling it, not when she cheated on me. So guys, not long after I sold the house, the divorce papers were ready, and I sent for them immediately. It took so long to be ready, but the wait was worth it. I had it signed and sent it to Janet to also sign, just like I had expected. Janet couldn't sign the divorce papers. Instead, she kept giving one excuse or the other. The divorce papers were with Janet for about 4 days. I didn't care at that time because I had signed the papers already, and I wasn't in any relationship whatsoever with her. Janet kept sending me messages through my lawyer to take her back. When I said I didn't want to see her at that time, I meant every bit of it. I blocked her number and blocked her on all social media platforms. The only place she had access to me was through my lawyer, which was why she kept on sending him messages if I could have a change of mind. When I got tired of those messages, I strictly warned her not to send me any messages through my lawyer and also had my lawyer warn her. But I knew the person I married, Janet, is one stubborn lady. She never takes no for an answer unless there's no way out. Update. Hey guys, I hope you all still remember me, right? Well, I'm here to complete my story and give you guys some juicy gist after the whole divorce saga and everything that went down. Afterward, Janet had the mind to show up at my new apartment. Obviously, she came pleading and asking for forgiveness. The sight of her got me irritated. But then again, I wanted to see her cry in pain and beg for mercy at my feet. Of course, I showed no sign of remorse. In fact, I had her bundled up and thrown out of the compound. I made it clear to her that I don't want to have anything to do with a cheater and shameless woman like her. I wasn't moved by the crocodile tears and the drama she put on in my compound. Like as if that wasn't enough, Janet brought some of her relatives to plead on her behalf. The whole scenario was exhausting and disgusting. I got fed up and politely walked them out of my compound. Up till now, I still don't know how Janet was able to locate me. She must have been stalking me after the divorce. Not too long after I walked Janet's relatives out of my compound, Janet showed up again. Yes, guys, she did, but this time what she came doing would surprise you all. Janet shamelessly came to meet me to give her some money. That is how shameless she is. I knew she was going to be stranded. That's why I needed to make sure she was left with no penny after the divorce. She thought she could eat her cake and have it back, but didn't know that karma would come knocking at the door. That's what she gets for not listening to me. It's her business to deal with, not mine. Of course, I didn't give her the money. I told her to go get something done. I gave out strict instructions to my gatekeeper never to allow Janet or any of her relatives into the compound. Ever since then, I haven't seen any of them, not even Janet. At least I've been having some peace of mind lately. The intrusion was too much that I nearly went to fire a restraining order. They were lucky they didn't show up again after the last time Janet came here begging for me. Before I forget, guys, during the divorce process, Janet walked up to me and told me that she couldn't believe that I was this ruthless and heartless. She thought I couldn't hurt a fly, but turned out I was a monster in sheep clothing, which gave me goosebumps. And I told her she was responsible for waking up the beast in me. Janet thought I was a sap that she could use as a puppet. Unfortunately, her plans failed, and she is the one at the receiving end. Just a few days ago, Janet signed the divorce papers and had it sent back to me. I thought she was never going to sign it. Right now, I feel so happy, and I am living my best life. What seemed like forever has finally come to an end. What I'm bent on doing right now is focusing on what to do with my life. I really don't want to be involved in any kind of romantic relationship now. Yes, I have indeed moved on from Janet, and I don't really care about her anymore. But for my own sanity, I would like to give it some time before going into all of that. Yes, let's forget. After much consideration, the court had pity on Janet and gave her some pennies, just to manage. She must have exhausted it with her affair partner. That's why she had the audacity to come back, asking for more from me. That's all, guys. I hope you all have learned something from this and hope you don't fall into this predicament. I, a female of 25, loved my fiancé, a male of 27, very deeply. He always assured me that I'll always be the only woman in his life. Our relationship was beautiful. We've always been best friends, and he was my rock. But it changed suddenly. I know that I was the one who was wrong, but did he really have to torture me like that? I deserved any punishment that he would have given me, but what he did really takes the cake because it destroyed me to the core. My fiancé, Adam, and I met at a business event that was happening at the restaurant that I owned years ago. Well, he was the one who was hosting a business dinner, so he came to my restaurant and booked the place for his function. Since that time, my restaurant was new in our small town in Barcelona. I was happy to get a chance to host a formal event in my restaurant, and it was going to be a very good kickstart for me and my business. He proposed after 6 months of dating, and that was the best thing I'd ever got. Even my Nana was happy, and that was enough for my heart. It took us the whole year to think and plan what we wanted for the wedding. And when that day came to start wedding preparations, I messed it all up. All because of lust and a craving for something different. But as much as I had messed it all up, I paid a great price for my actions. Our marital problem started when he suddenly changed on me. Well, you know that everyone has needs, sexual needs. Adam was always too busy for me, to the point that I would even beg him to at least have or get time to spend with me. You know, when you try your utmost best to look good for him, smell good for him, I'm talking about preparing romantic dinners and wearing a sexy number, just to remind him what he was missing. But he was still missing all that effort. When I got tired of trying and begging like I have no life, I decided to just get my groove back and be myself again, despite the fact that I was a married woman. I know that I should have respected my wedding vows and remained loyal to my partner, like I had said on our wedding day. I won't speak as if I'm a saint or something because I am not. I love intimacy. Intimacy to me is like a stress reliever. Something that gives me motive to go on. Y'all can't blame me. I was sexually starved in my home and I found a little something to help me. I had started looking down on myself, thinking that I would never be good enough for any man. When Adam started being always busy with work and never had my time like before, only for God to turn the tables and throw Pascal, my affair partner, to me, the best man that I had ever got to quench my sexual thirst with, and the man who truly appreciated my body and accepted me for me, and not for what I had to offer. Only we had a deep connection in chemistry that no one would actually think of. Pascal was my go-to guy whenever I had a problem or was sexually frustrated or hungry. Well, so one beautiful, sunny yet busy day, Pascal Smith, the guy I had an affair with, male 29, and I first met at my restaurant. As I was on duty to serve and cook for my customers that day, since I was short on staff, he was friendly, kind, fun, and was always willing to listen to me and my problems. You know, I couldn't help but notice how attractive he was. He had a charming smile and a confident air about him that I found irresistible. Before I knew it, we were deep in conversation, and I found myself feeling drawn to him as time went on. I found myself drawn to Pascal's youthful energy and zest for life. I began to feel a connection with him that I hadn't felt in a long time. However, I knew that I was committed to Adam. Pascal and I were spending more time together exploring new ventures. It was fun. I got to be free and be me again. Yes, I needed a friend to pass time with, but I felt something for Pascal despite my initial intentions to keep things platonic. My feelings for Pascal grew stronger each day. I found myself daydreaming about him and eagerly awaiting our conversations on a social media platform called Discord, since it was where we would communicate, because I didn't want my fiancé to find out about my newly formed friendship with him. Pascal knew how to make me feel better when I would sometimes feel under the weather. He knew me from the inside and outside more than my husband. He knew me when I was happy or sad. When I would be asked to tell that one negative thing that I would never forget about Adam, that one thing I would never forget is the revenge or the actions that Adam took when I came back from my affair with Pascal. It was something that I had never expected, and it still haunts me till today. Pascal and I would go to parties and visit new clubs or pubs. It was really a great experience to get to explore places and not always do boring, weary duties. The relationship, or the affair, that I had with Pascal really meant a lot to me because it actually gave me a chance to get to know myself well and explore my desires freely. I just wanted to have some fun, but I guess the fun had me instead. How could I be so stupid and careless? Time passed as I was busy going up and down. Pascal had noticed my behavior, and at that time, our relationship was under a lot of stress. We would argue most of the time and sometimes end up going to bed angry at each other. Mind you, we had talked about going to bed angry at each other. We had agreed that no one would go to bed angry or sad because of another person. We agreed to communicate about things that we didn't like and the things that made us angry to avoid going to bed with a heavy heart. But I guess everything and everyone changes. A lot was happening in my relationship with Adam to a point that he literally threatened me. Well, he said it was a promise, but I took it as a threat. He told me that he didn't know me anymore and that I had changed. He then said he would make something I would never forget if I ever cheat on him and he finds out. I had no control over myself, and that had started when Adam became too busy for me. One day, I couldn't resist the feelings that I had for Pascal any longer. I had to either choose to stay away from Pascal and throw away how I felt, or I confess everything. So, I decided to meet Pascal in a coffee shop kilometers away from where my house is. We arranged to meet at a local coffee shop, and my heart raced with excitement and guilt. I knew that I was about to betray my husband, but Pascal was giving me everything that I needed. So I confessed to the guy. I know it was a reckless move that I did, but I felt like confessing rather than to die with something that you had been longing to take out of your chest. What surprised me was that he also felt the same way. But he wanted to keep our thing a secret because he had someone in his life. I understood because I also had Adam in my life, and if he were to find out about my affair with my affair partner, he would surely lose it. Pascal's energy and mind just clicked. I don't know how, but we had that kind of connection or chemistry that I also can't explain. My husband, or must I say my ex-husband, was always traveling and leaving me alone in the house. So, on my day off work, I would go and visit my Nana and stay with her. Even our intimate moments were no longer the same. I was no longer getting it right from him. The more my husband was not available, the more my feelings for Pascal grew. He was always there when I needed him. He was always available. Pascal and I had already been out several times. He made me feel alive and appreciated. What I did was wrong on so many levels. I should have ended the abomination whilst I had time. But guess what I did? I continued seeing him on the side. Well, I couldn't let go of him. I don't know why, but whenever I would think of cutting off our cheating, he also had a girlfriend, I would feel like I would be letting go of my happiness. During that time, when my husband was busy acting up, I started spending more time with Pascal. Pascal was what I can call a great time passer. He helped me pass the time when my ex-husband was super distant from me in our relationship. I was going through a lot, I knew my ex-husband loved me, but his behavior was stressing me out to a point that I would even find myself venting in Pascal. I know it was wrong of me to just put my relationship problems out there or share them with an AP or an outsider, but I needed someone to vent to, and Pascal was there and available. Time passed, and I continued spending more time with Pascal until Adam saw that I was no longer staying at home for long. He figured that I was spending time with another man, so he asked why I was spending more time with a guy called Pascal. I didn't know how to react. I mean, if he knew my AP's name, that meant he had been stalking me or investigating my moves. Even if I were to explain what was happening between Pascal and I, Adam was not going to believe me because he had his own mind and imaginations. Even though his imaginations were true, I couldn't confess to that. I couldn't allow my relationship to be destroyed because of an affair. On the other side, I was trying to protect what I had with Pascal. It was special to me. I knew then that I must have fallen hard for Pascal because I had missed his touch after a long time of not communicating with him. The way he would appreciate my body and make me feel young and carefree. I know I shouldn't have done that, but I couldn't resist. He had that soft touch that would make me want to ask him not to stop what he was doing. It was like his touch and kisses were a drug. Not to mention, our intimate moments were what I had been longing for. I had been craving for the whole time. One night, Pascal and I went to have some kind of a date night under the moonlight. That was when Pascal and I kissed for the first time since we last communicated and saw each other. Our kiss was passionate and intense, and we both knew that we wanted more. I know what I did was wrong and evil, but I couldn't resist. I missed him, and the way our kiss was heated, I knew that he missed me too. Even though we knew that we were doing something wrong, and there were great chances to get caught. For the next few months Pascal and I continued our affair in secret. We couldn't resist each other. He was bringing me happiness that I was not getting from my husband since he was always busy. So we would meet up at hotels or secluded parks, always making sure to keep our relationship hidden from everyone else. I know what I did was sluttish and evil, but I had to at least get my happiness outside since my husband couldn't give it to me. Adam is the kind of guy that would be romantic, shower you with love and all, but when it came to affection and making a lady happy, he dismally failed. This led me to crave for something else, something that would make me happy and feel complete. I wanted to be myself. I have seen one of Adam's friends with his wife, and the way the guy was treating his wife, touching his wife, I wanted that. I craved it, and I got it from Pascal, even though it was all lust and affection. There were feelings, but I don't think it was love. As time went on, I began to feel guilty about my affair with Pascal. I knew that I was hurting Adam, the man I had promised to love and cherish for the rest of my life. But what would I have done if he didn't care about my happiness and my desires? The only thing he would do was to shower me with gifts, romantic dinners, and love. But that was not enough for me. I didn't need any materialistic things from him. I needed his attention, affection, and happiness. Sometimes, love alone is not enough, right? I knew that there was something he knew about my affair with Pascal, but I didn't want him to know that I was actually feeling something for the guy. I felt like the abomination that I had done was written all over me, and it didn't help with the guilt I was feeling. I knew there and then that my relationship was hanging on a very high and dangerous cliff. You know when you get that feeling that tells you everything you had worked hard for was about to go south instead of north? That was what I had felt, and I couldn't even blame anyone for it. About a week later, a delivery guy came to the house stating that he had come to deliver a parcel. When I asked who had sent it, he told me what all other delivery guys usually say, "I don't know, ma'am. I'm just a delivery guy." My conscience told me that maybe it was something from my business client. Little did I know that it was actually a letter that stated he wanted me to move out of the house. I thought I was going crazy, like my mind was about to burst like a bomb. I couldn't believe why Adam would just decide to send me such things. Why couldn't he sit down with me and talk like a married and matured couple? But he went out there and filed for full ownership of the house. I couldn't let him win just like that. If he wanted to go, he should have told me, but not to go to our family lawyer and file for full ownership of the house. I was actually given 2 weeks to vacate the house, or else legal actions would be taken against me. And I knew that even if I was to try and fight him, I wouldn't win because I was the one who went outside my relationship and committed adultery. I called our family lawyer and asked for an urgent meeting with Adam because everything was going through our lawyers. So, when we got there, I asked Adam why he wanted to take full ownership of our house. It's not like he couldn't afford to buy another one. The answers he gave me were more than enough to make me depressed and think of the worst of myself. He showed me and our families, my Nana and his parents, a video and pictures of me and Pascal in our secret locations. When I saw the first video of me and Pascal getting intimate, I felt so humiliated. I didn't know what to do or say because there was no denying anything since the evidence was right in our faces. I couldn't even look at my Nana because I felt like I knew what her face looked like. She was embarrassed and felt like she was let down by me. And I did let her down, and humiliated her and my fiancé in the worst way possible. I tried pleading with Adam to at least have mercy on me and not kick me out of the house. I know that I could afford my own place, but the house was my happy and peaceful place. My fiancé didn't want to think his decision through. I really thought that he was going to be reasonable since he once claimed to love me. Adam and I shared a lot, and we had been through a lot together. Didn't that count for something? Maybe the guy just told us that he was done talking, and the call he would like to receive would be the call that tells him I had signed the papers, and that my 2 weeks of vacating his house was almost over. So, I had to decide fast where I would go. But he wanted me out of the house, knowing that my desires of exploring something else outside my relationship would get me into this mess. I wouldn't have started it. I couldn't eat nor do anything the way I was so depressed. I stayed in my bedroom for the whole week, much to my Nana's annoyance and disapproval. To close myself in my room, I looked like a junkie in the street, and it was all my fault. Later on, after I had done having a self-pity party, I decided to get out of my room. My Nana even called my brother to come and plead with me to come out of the room. I started attending sessions, and even now I'm still attending them. I just feel like Adam and I can still make everything work. I miss my husband so much, and I am in so much denial about the fact that all that we had worked hard for and had gone through would just vanish. Time passed, and I received a call from Adam, which was a huge surprise for me. I was somewhat happy but curious. He asked me to come to the house so we could have a proper talk and told me that he had missed me. As much as I was happy with what he told me, curiosity got the better of me. So, I told my Nana that Adam had called, wanting to speak to me. So I was going to our house, or let me say his house. A few days later, I went to meet up with Adam at his house. We had a talk, I was just glad that I had a civilized talk with Adam. I apologized for going outside our relationship to find comfort in another man's arms. I told him that I was feeling lonely since he wasn't there most of the time, and our sexual moments were no longer the same, which was what pushed me to get it somewhere else. He also apologized on his side and promised to change. His apology looked and sounded so sincere that I even believed him. He confessed that his actions were selfish, but what he had discovered about me really broke him. We said a lot to each other, and he listened attentively. I think he understood the damage his mistrust had caused, the pain he had inflicted upon me. I really thought he wanted us to fix things. He even asked me to move back to the house so that we would be able to mend our relationship and patch where it needed to be. Because I loved him, heck, I still love him to death. Even now, I accepted his request of moving back. My heart was happy and at peace because I was going back to the one that owned my heart. Everything was just going well, and I wouldn't ask for more. We were supposed to be building and fixing our relationship, the broken hearts, at least that's what I thought. I even told my Nana that I was moving back with Adam because we had fixed things. My Nana was happy about that and gave a long advice speech to never be careless like I was and always respect my relationship. On the other hand, I had been ignoring Pascal on Discord, and I didn't even bother to answer his calls. I had not ended things with him, but I knew that I had to end it somehow because there were chances that my husband and I were going to fix things after some time. I decided to be brave and end things with Pascal because I loved Adam and I believed that he was the one for me and no one else. I had always imagined myself spending my whole life and growing old with my first love. I couldn't risk Adam having second thoughts about our relationship, as I thought that would destroy and jeopardize our relationship. Adam was the missing piece in my heart and soul, while Pascal was the happiness that I had been longing for too long. Adam and I worked so hard to fix the issues that he had, but eventually, we conquered it all. I was grateful for the fact that he had allowed me to help him get through everything and somehow be able to forgive and move on. I was in another dimension of happiness. I had my man back. Our relationship was going smooth, up until one fateful night. That night ruined me. It crushed my soul into pieces that cannot be repaired. I really thought that everything was going well between Adam and I, but I was just fooling myself. A few months later, my relationship with Adam looked promising. We were inseparable. Yes, we had our fair share of ups and downs, arguments and misunderstandings just like every couple, but it was all just fake. I really thought we had something good going on. Little did I know that I was actually fooling myself. Time passed. My life was slowly crumbling down. I had no idea what was going on, and what may be the cause of everything. I had notified my Nana about what was going on. She suggested that I pray, and she would also pray for me on her side. I was so grateful for that. But even prayers didn't do any justice. When every wall that surrounds your life comes crumbling down, and the worst part is, you don't even know what caused it to crumble down because it didn't have any crack or damage. That was how my life turned. It suddenly became something that I didn't even know how and where I would explain how it was. There was this day where I was just going through my restaurant books, just to check how everything was going that day. I had decided that I would be working from home because I was too lazy to drive during my work. I received a call from the restaurant manager. At first, I couldn't make out what she was saying because she was speaking too fast. I asked her to speak slowly, and that was when she managed to tell me that I had to rush to the restaurant because there was an emergency that needed my attention. The way she sounded, like she was panicking, made me think that something big had happened at the restaurant. I didn't stay any longer. I called Adam and notified him about what was happening. He promised to be there after work. I felt my soul leaving my body that time when I saw my restaurant in flames. Like that, I felt empty inside. I didn't even know what to do. I felt like I was suffocating. As I was still in that depressing mode, Pascal came. I don't know when he came or where he came from. I just saw him coming to console me. I needed a hug and someone to tell me that everything was going to be okay, and that I was just dreaming. My mind was all over the place. I didn't even notice when Adam had arrived. I heard Adam calling my name, and that was when I came back to my senses. I didn't even realize that I had been holding Pascal for too long and too tight. I was even ashamed to look at my husband at that time. I didn't even know when Adam got to the scene. When our eyes locked, I saw some other person that I didn't even know nor recognize. The person that was ogling at me didn't look like my loving and caring fiancé. His eyes were full of rage, hatred, and hurt. I had hurt my husband and destroyed my relationship and marriage in the most humiliating way. I hated myself and still do for that. But I had to try and explain why I had done what I did and apologize. So, the next day, when I saw that he was no longer enraged like he had been the previous night, I asked to speak to him. I was glad that, as much as his tempers kept coming back, he was not violent, well, at least towards me. So, I explained everything to him from point A to point Z. I tried making him understand that I didn't do what I did on purpose, and it wasn't my intention to destroy what we had. A week later, Adam told me to prepare a feast because we would be having guests. That time, I don't know how I would put it, but he wasn't like the day he saw me hugging Pascal. I obliged with what he said and prepared everything. I didn't even ask what the occasion was or who those people were. I did my wifely duties, but my heart kept beating too fast for a normal heartbeat. It felt like it was going to explode in an instant. Later on, Adam came back with 3 women. He introduced them by their names, which was very odd, but I didn't pay much attention to it. He then commanded me to go and wear my lingerie and join the party. I was skeptical at first, but the way he looked at me made me stop asking questions and do as he said. There was this time when he came back from work. His shirt had lipstick on it, and there were hickeys on his chest and neck. So recently, he told me that he had a craving for doing it as an *** with another woman while I watched. I made it clear that I was not interested, that I was monogamous, and that I would not accept him being with another woman in bed, as it is cheating. I've been cheated on in the past, and it made me a little emotional to tell him of this. He told me that my having boundaries made him feel uncomfortable, and that I'm always creating issues and starting arguments while he tries his best to make our relationship perfect. We argued a lot about it on various occasions, and I eventually forced myself to tell him that I'd be okay if he did it with another woman. It made me very sad, but as long as he was happy, I was a bit scared to argue again. He told me he wanted a threesome, and I hesitated before saying yes, against my will. I knew that he was doing that on purpose because he wanted to avenge himself after what I did with Pascal. We did take part in a threesome with a girl he arranged it with, and it was the most unpleasant and uncomfortable experience of my life. Later on, we argued a lot about it, and he told me that I was selfish for not considering his feelings and that I should have told him I was not okay with it sooner. I did, and he still got angry. He even reminded me about the promise or threat that he had told me before. Mind you, I had even forgotten about it. And I regretted everything in an instant, just because of a small mistake that I made. A lot was done, and it ended up getting tied up and forced to watch my partner cheat with 3 other people. Can you believe that? I know it sounds like something out of a movie, right? But unfortunately, it was all too real for me. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw what was happening right in front of me. I kept thinking to myself, this can't be happening. How did I end up in this situation? It was like a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. And the worst part, no one would believe me if I told them what happened. They would think I was making it up or exaggerating. But I swear it was the truth. As if that was enough, he decided to tie me in the chair and made me watch him making out with those 3 women that he had come with. Can you imagine? I couldn't watch it anymore because my tears were clouding my vision. I wanted to just pass out and never wake up. At that moment, I felt like my heart was ripped off my chest. He forced me to look at them and asked how it felt. I really thought Adam was crazy there, and no sane person would torture the person they claimed to love like he did. I swear I died a million times there. Witnessing your partner enjoying intimacy with other women really cuts deep. I asked him to stop. I wanted what I felt in my soul to stop torturing me. That time, I was wet and heartbroken. What they were doing was what was supposed to be me and my fiancé. I couldn't watch it any further. I tried closing my eyes, but I could still hear them, the moans and the groans they were doing. I had never thought that there were actually women who enjoyed seeing another woman in misery and sadness. My cries were just in vain. They didn't even faze Adam. I knew there and then that the person that I had thought I knew, I actually didn't know him. I asked myself why Adam would want to fix things with me, while he knew that he wanted to use me and plot revenge for my abomination. I sometimes hate my life and how naive I am when it comes to my relationship with Adam. I know that I had done him wrong in the worst way possible, not once but twice. I know that I had disrespected him before when he found me hugging Pascal, but that didn't mean I deserved such a harsh revenge. Those women were enjoying every moment with my man while I watched like I was just an audience. I begged Adam to untie me, but it felt like my plea was falling on deaf ears. Not even one of them dared to look at me. They were in their own planet, enjoying every moment of the bullshit *** that they were doing during that torture and evil moment. Adam was busy performing. He confessed that he was the one who tampered with the electricity cables and cords that made my restaurant burn to ashes. Couldn't believe it. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. I felt like I was losing my mind. I fought to break free from that chair I was tied in. I felt the rage that I didn't even think was there. I felt a kind of hatred over Adam. How could he destroy me like that? I would keep asking myself silently where I could have gone wrong. I kept trying to remind myself of at least something that I had done that would make Adam do something like this to me. I really thought that we had something special. That night was the most traumatic and humiliating day or night for me. It won't be easy to just forget and move on from it. My mind took me to my affair with Pascal, which was somewhat the thing that made us break up in the first place. But I would also console myself by saying that Adam wouldn't have taken me back if he hadn't forgiven me. He wouldn't have called me while I was at my Nana's place and asked me to come back to our or his house. I knew that Adam was a blunt person, but I never thought he was evil and unapologetic. It wasn't like maybe I was seeing my father or brother naked by mistake. That would be easy to just apologize and move on. But what was happening in front of me was the fact that I was literally forced to watch my man banging other women. Not one, but 3 women. I really wished for the universe to have mercy on me and take me to my peaceful resting place. I cannot unsee what has happened. It always haunts me. Okay, he might have destroyed me in my heart, but was it necessary for him to also destroy what I had worked hard for to build? I couldn't recognize the snake and the devil that was in front of me. My heart just loads at him. He didn't just destroy my restaurant and my heart, but he had destroyed the only thing that was putting food on the table at my Nana's house. He had taken away the only thing that kept my Nana alive. I didn't know how to deal with everything because the only thing that I can remember is waking up on the hospital bed with my Nana on the side and the devil himself. I don't really remember what really happened that led me to wake up in the hospital. When I woke up, my Nana was the first one to see me. I couldn't hold my tears any longer, so I broke in my Nana's chest. I couldn't even look at Adam. I loathe even his existence, but half of my heart still loves him. Is it normal for a person to still love someone who had destroyed them and broken them till this day? I am still battling with recovery. I have not healed, and I don't think I will anytime soon. But my soul is begging for peace. What can I do to find peace?